Hello and good evening. I'm Osama Nazal, and it's my pleasure really to welcome you to our first episode of this podcast, Unbowed. As the world watches the unrelenting devastation in Gaza, a high-level conference in New York has once again revived the international conversation on the two-state solution. But is this diplomatic momentum genuine or merely a reactionary move to ease global outrage over Israeli genocide against the Palestinian people? Joining us is the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the State of Palestine, Dr. Omar Awadallah, a key figure navigating these critical moments and hard times the Palestinian people are going through, and we will explore together the opportunities and challenges facing the Palestinian diplomacy at a time when political, humanitarian, and moral stakes could not be higher. You're welcome to our program, to our first podcast, Dr. Omar.
Ahlan, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And let's start with the big picture vis-a-vis the New York conference on the two-state solution. Do you think that it is a real, genuine shift in the international community policy towards the cause of Palestine, or it is just a response to the Israeli genocide and to the images coming from Gaza, where children are cut into pieces and people are dying of Israeli bombing and of starvation? What's your take on that, Dr. Omar?
First of all, it is important to look at this conference as a cumulative step toward the independence of the State of Palestine. It's not new. It's something that we've been working on since ages, since years. It was on the agenda of the leadership always to have a peace conference to resolve the question of Palestine. We've been hearing from so many countries about the two-state solution, but what does that mean, two-state solution? We felt that some countries are using this title only to say that we are doing all what we have to do. We are supporting the two-state solution. But what does that mean, two-state solution? We've been stressing out that you should have a good definition for the two-state solution. Two-state solution for us means ending the Israeli occupation, the Palestinian people to have their inalienable rights, including the right to independence, return, and self-determination. So it's started years before we have all of this good conference that we all watched what happened in New York. So I can recall, first of all, the basis of this conference. The base of this conference is the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice, because after we adopted the resolution about the implementation of the advisory opinion about the illegality of Israel, we had so many actions within that resolution. One of these articles, one of these items, one of these operative paragraphs about this resolution is to convene an international conference to implement the two-state solution. And please, it's good to note that we're talking about the implementation of the two-state solution by implementing the United Nations resolutions. So it's about implementation, it's about action, it's about the engagement of the international community with the Palestinian leadership. Unfortunately, this conference came at a time while the Palestinian people are facing the genocide in Gaza, the forcible displacement in the West Bank, the attack on our historic and cultural and holy sites in Jerusalem. So the time came after the implementation of the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice that we need to convene such a conference. So when we're talking about the modality of this conference, we were thinking that we need powerful countries to be the leaders, to be the chairs, to be the president of such a conference. And we wanted that conference to be at the United Nations because our cause started there. And there is a historic responsibility of the United Nations toward the question of Palestine. So we need major big players, we need the international community to be there, we need the implementation of the two-state solution, we need the international law to be the main driver of such a conference. And the conference already happened.
Yeah, but Dr. Omar, if there had been no Israeli genocide against our people in Gaza, would this conference have been convened in New York?
Definitely. The conference, we prepared for that conference since we submitted our question to the General Assembly for the advisory opinion at the International Court of Justice. So it started there because Israel was attacking all our rights, no action, no political horizon, no negotiations, no peace process, nothing is happening, only attack on the rights of the Palestinian people. So the leadership were thinking how to go and what to do toward engaging the international community to implement our rights first. That's why we're talking about implementing the two-state solution, means implementing the state of Palestine, materializing the state of Palestine, and having the Palestinian people their rights to independence and return and self-determination.
Yeah, but what do you think of the view and some analysis that this conference was an attempt by the Western government of co-optation just to contain the outrage of their peoples against the Israeli genocide? And if they were serious about acknowledging the rights of the Palestinian people, instead of the conference, they would have imposed sanctions, trade sanctions, the military embargo on Israel, and that would be translated as genuine support by these countries for the rights of the Palestinians. What do you think?
We never stopped to ask countries to take action toward the illegality that Israel is committing in the occupied Palestinian territory. We never stopped asking states to take sanctions, consequences on Israel. So this conference is a political platform because there is no genuine peace process, there is no genuine contribution to the peace in the region. There is attack, there is a new Israeli government that is its program about the suppression of the rights of the Palestinian people, the suppression of the Palestinian aspirations to independence. So we need an engagement from the international community. The conference came and stressed out that we need to take actions, including sanctions, because one major pillar within that conference talks about the how to preserve the two-state solution. Other one is talking about the compliance with international law, which means action by states toward confronting the illegality of Israel on the ground. And if we want to talk about the preservation of the two-state solution, that means we need to confront the strategic threat against the question of Palestine, against our rights in the West Bank, which is the settlements. So it was clear that this conference is not only about political outcome, and we saw some of these outcomes, the recognition, for example. It's about economical support for the government. It's about legal track toward implementing the two-state solution and the rights of the Palestinian people, and a security and protection for the Palestinian people. So everything was designed in that conference toward implementing the two-state solution, which means it's time not for words, for deeds. States should take actions.
Yeah,
and they should commit to these actions.
Yeah, Dr. Omar, you mentioned the recognition, and we all heard the statement, the announcement by the UK Prime Minister Starmer and also the Prime Minister of Canada, and their recognition of the state of Palestine was conditional. For example, Mr. Starmer said, we will recognize the state of Palestine in September unless Israel accepts a ceasefire agreement and gets into negotiations. And also Canada connected its recognition with getting Hamas out of the Palestinian political landscape. So how do you interpret these conditions? And aren't you afraid that they are going to use the Palestinian statehood as a tool for pressuring the Palestinian leadership rather than acknowledging the rights of the Palestinian people and delivering justice?
It's important to look at the New York Declaration as an outcome, as a set of things the international community should take, including the recognition. One of the political tool toward the implementation and implementing the two-state solution So the conditions that you're talking about, these conditions are on Israel, by the way. Israel should do that and that and that. And we all believe and we all know that if Israel implemented the UN resolutions, withdrawal from Gaza Strip, letting the Palestinian government go to Gaza and to take lead in governance and security, and to implement the two-state solution and peaceful track, I think the two-state solution will be implemented. So we don't see these conditions as conditions on Palestine. Those conditions are on Israel, and we all know that Israel, as a rogue state, as a state above the international law, should be sanctioned, should be put in a place to implement and to take decisions toward accepting the rights of the Palestinian people, accepting the Palestinian state, accepting the new Middle East with the state of Palestine at the heart of this new Middle East. So our brothers, the Saudis, the main drivers, the courageous steps that they took with the leadership of France, they have a good achievement in that conference, that the state of Palestine should be a prerequisite to peace, not a byproduct of that peace.
Yeah, that is very important, but we can't forget the position of the American administration, and we know of the power and the leverage that the American administration or the United States has on the Middle East politics. And Rubio criticized, the State Secretary Rubio criticized the conference, and he said the people, or those people who recognize the state of Palestine, don't know where this state is located. So what message does this have from the American administration concerning its commitment to peace in the region? And how would the Palestinian diplomacy act and engage in light of such American position, which is very much aligned with the Israeli one?
First of all, we've always been talking that we want to use the multilateral mechanism toward resolving the question of Palestine that can encourage, including the Americans, to engage in a genuine process where all states are engaging. The majority of states were in New York, supporting the Palestinian cause, supporting the two-state solution, talking about the recognition as an issue that we all should do in September, the upcoming September. So we believe that this track should encourage the Americans to engage, not to isolate themselves. Because if they are going to stay, the Americans and the Israelis, they will be isolating themselves out of the peace that we all looking for in the Middle East, the security that we want our people to have in the occupied Palestinian territory and the region as all, but not on the expenses of our sovereignty, our geography, or our demography. Yeah, so this conference is an opportunity for the Americans to engage in a genuine process, but not to attack this conference, not to attack the states that were convening in New York.
To translate these words into action, is there any contact between the Palestinian diplomacy and the American administration, whether directly or, for example, through the Arab League, the Saudis, through any international party?
Especially on this conference, we did not see the hostility of the American administration against this conference, because we know when the Americans are hostile against any cause or against any issue. We did not see that. Yes, there is contact via our brothers, the Arabs, including our brothers, the Saudis. There is contacts at the level of our mission in New York. In some aspects, we're trying to work together because there is a lot of questions. First of all, that this conference came at a time while the Palestinian people are facing existential threat, the genocide in Gaza, the ethnic cleansing in the West Bank, the attack on our rights. So for us, it was important for this conference to be a successful conference, because we're all looking at the ceasefire, and the Americans are main player in that file. So for us, ceasefire is still a priority. To stop the forcible transfer is a priority for the leadership. The issue of stop the famine, the starvation that Israel is using as a method of war in Gaza Strip. All of this, we believe that the Americans, they have
we don't
leverage on that.
Yeah, I agree with you, but we don't want to forget the last statement by the American officials sanctioning the Palestinian Authority, or some officials of the Palestinian Authority, and hinting at banning Palestinian officials from getting to New York to participate in the United Nations General Assembly meeting this year, and all that because of the recognition of the state of Palestine. So how do you interpret this American statement or this American position?
You know, first of all, our delegation was headed by His Excellency the Prime Minister himself, the Foreign Minister herself, the Minister of Planning also. It was a high-level delegation to the United Nations. They were there in New York, first of all. Secondly, we did not receive anything officially from the American administration about the issue of banning our officials to go to New York to participate.
But it was on the website.
It was there, we saw it.
Yeah.
Yes, we saw it. None of us are going to the US for a visit or tourism. We're going to the United Nations because our cause is there, and we'll be working with the United Nations toward implementing all these resolutions and to be present there to represent our people. At the same time, there is an agreement between the US and the UN for the headquarters of the UN to be at the United Nations. And if the Americans, they do that, they are in a violation of that agreement. And we don't believe that the Americans will do that. Adding to this, all our visas, by the way, they have waiver. Mm-hmm. We as diplomats, yes, we receive visa to the United States, only official visa to the UN with a waiver that taking into consideration the American laws against the PLO and the PA.
Yes,
the Palestinian officials, they have waiver to enter only for the purpose of the United Nations.
Yeah, so
meetings.
Are you going to have, or do you have any contact now with France, the UK, the Saudis, in order to handle this issue before the start of the United Nations General Assembly meeting?
Actually, we had so many meetings, so many officials, European officials and other officials came and asked about this, whether this will have any obstacles against our leadership to participate at the United Nations or not. And we had a frank discussion with all these countries about the need of our leadership to be there.
How did they respond to that?
As I said, if the Americans are going to do that, this is a violation of the headquarters of the United Nations agreement between the US and the UN.
Yeah. You mentioned that the results or the outcomes of the New York conference were great, focusing on the right of the Palestinian people and doing justice to the Palestinian people and the establishment of the Palestinian state. But if we look at the realities on the ground, as we see the Israeli occupation army is in the heart of Gaza, splitting all of Gaza into zones. We see the Israeli occupation army incursions into the Palestinian cities every day. Israeli settlers killing Palestinians, destroying homes and agricultural areas. So don't you think that there is a big gap between the reality on the ground and the statements and pillars we received from a New York conference?
It's important to look at the New York Declaration with the annex that came, and the annex should be an integral part of the New York Declaration. The annex is about action and commitments by states. Everything that you already elaborated on is tackled within the conference. And as I said, this conference is about actions. It's not about statements. It's not about good statements or, as we always say, good lip services toward the Palestinian. It's not about condemnation of the illegality of settlements or settler terrorism. It's about what states are going to do to confront the settlements regime by preventing the products of the settlements to enter their countries, by taking sanctions on settlement regime, by preventing the settlers to enter these countries. And we saw so many countries taking that bold step toward preventing some officials within the Israeli government to enter their capitals. Adding to this, the issue of a weapon embargo, political, economical, trade, sanctions on Israel. And it's not only about sanctions, it's also about empowering the Palestinian government to take the responsibility toward the governance and security.
Dr. Omar, there was a debate among the members of the EU concerning the association agreement with Israel and to freeze trade and, communications with Israel. But there was no consensus on that, and the debate stopped without imposing any sanctions on Israel. So do you think that later on we are going to see different things, different steps on the ground? Is the EU going to agree from within to impose sanctions on Israeli settlements and Israeli occupation?
It's important to look at the positive side from the EU. There is a big bloc within the EU itself and the EU governments supporting the question of Palestine, supporting to take action toward the illegality of what Israel is doing, the illegal Israeli occupation, toward not to render aid or give any assistance to this regime to continue its occupation and its colonial aspirations in the occupied Palestinian territory. There is a big bloc in the EU. Unfortunately, some countries are working toward blocking the consensus within the EU, and we heard it before from the Israeli so-called foreign minister when he said that we have, one state at the Security Council that blocks any decision, and we have one state at the EU that blocks any consensus within the EU. But that does not mean that there is no big bloc, big countries that are supporting to take actions toward Israel. And the review of the association agreement, which came from Netherlands. Netherlands is a friend of Israel. We all know that. And to review the association agreement, to speak loudly about taking actions against the trade with Israel and with the Israeli settlements, that's a big achievement. And we believe that will help more and more to build on that momentum, including the outcome of the conference toward taking actions to bring Israel as an occupying power to an end. So this move, maybe this time did not happen. Some countries started to take decision by their own. We saw Ireland, we saw Slovenia, we saw some countries within the EU are taking these bold decisions. These decisions will be policy soon within the EU and within these countries.
Yeah, and are there diplomatic efforts by the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs to convince other European countries and other countries around the world to follow suit Slovenia step and boycott at least the products produced by the Israeli colonial settlements in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem?
I can assure you that this is the strategy of the Palestinian diplomacy toward taking actions, sanctions toward Israel and working with states to activate their legal systems, their policy, their parliaments toward taking decisions and laws and bylaws to prevent any kind of dealings with this illegal regime and not to render aid, no money, no weapon, no nothing to this illegal regime to end it as the advisory opinion elaborated and endured, saying that this occupation should be ended as rapidly as possible. So this is our strategy with countries not only within the EU but also in other parts of the world. We saw in the Latin America how many countries already took such bold decisions toward Israel, boycotting and stopping their relationship with Israel on diplomatic and economical and trade relationship with Israel.
Yeah. Back to New York conference, as the participants pledged to support the Palestinian Authority to have control over Gaza and all of the Palestinian territory. Is there any practical thing in the very near future in order to enable the Palestinian government to do that and to start the implementation of the reconstruction and recovery plan? Because we see how the Palestinian government is suffering delay in salaries, and the international aid is dwindling. The economic situation due to the Israeli blockade is collapsing. So can we say that they are going to translate these statements into action on the ground and start supporting the Palestinian government budget in the near future?
Definitely. I think that you saw the consensus within the international community that the Palestinian government is the partner for the international community that they are dealing with. This partner is under the leadership of the PLO and the President Mahmoud Abbas, and this is the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. All they stressed out that we have one only partner, and they supported our principles about one state, one land, one government, one rule of law, and one gun at the same time. These principles that were elaborated and put in the letter of His Excellency the President Mahmoud Abbas to President Macron and to Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, stating about the commitment about the state of Palestine and the future of the state of Palestine, that brought so many confidence in the work of this government, taking into consideration the reform and all the transparent process that this government is bringing, talking that the sole and the only partner that should govern in Gaza also, in governance and in security, is the Palestinian government. And there is a lot of agreements that were signed at the sidelines of the New York conference, and we believe so many agreements and memorandum of understandings to come soon, actually, after this conference, towards supporting the Palestinian budget and the Palestinian ownership over the tax revenues. All states, they came up that Israel cannot hold the Palestinian money. This is Palestinian money, tax revenues, and they should find a way to let the Palestinian people sovereign over their resources, over their money, and to find ways to support the Palestinian government toward having this money.
Yeah, Dr. Omar, the people watching this podcast might be wondering now why Dr. Omar is very optimistic about the outcomes of a New York conference, though we have about 800 resolutions issued by the United Nations and no one resolution was implemented. So what is new that would push the Western Bloc and the international community in general this time to commit to the outcomes of a New York conference and start real implementation of embodying the Palestinian state or materializing the Palestinian state? What makes you so optimistic?
First of all, Palestinian diplomacy is about optimism, because we are optimistic that we have such great people, the Palestinian people that we are representing. This is, first of all, this is the main driver behind our optimism, that we have such brave people and leadership that we will achieve our goals, definitely. Adding to this conference is about, as I said from the beginning, it's about actions. It's about commitments from states to the state of Palestine. It's not imposing anything on states. State came to this conference with commitments, with actions that they are going to implement themselves. So this is the difference. It's not a resolution that we have 190 countries supporting. Here we have 190 countries committed to do 1, 2, 3, 4. The 4 main pillars: to support Palestine politically, to support Palestine economically, to support Palestine on the sphere of the international law, on the issue of how to protect the Palestinian people. So it's about commitment, actions by states. The difference here is how to implement and how to do, and how we can, as Palestinian leadership, to send to reform this outcome and have a special format out of this outcome into action plan for states, telling them, here is the projects that we want you to support, because we want to translate, as I said, the outcome and its annex into actions according to what we heard from countries at this conference.
Yeah, my final question to Dr. Omar. Of course, we all hope that the Israeli genocide would stop soon against our people and the starvation in Gaza would end. there was a pledge by the participants in your conference to support the Palestinians holding general elections in Palestine. We all know that there was an attempt by the Palestinian president years before to hold elections, but Israel banned the Palestinians in East Jerusalem their right to be part of these elections, and that's why it did not happen. Do you think this time the European countries and the people who participated in your conference are going to seriously act to force or to pressure Israel to approve of Palestinians having elections in East Jerusalem?
I think this is their commitment. They want to see a democratic, viable, independent, contiguous Palestinian state. That means that they should help the Palestinian leadership to hold elections in all the Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem. And this is their commitment. So we want a democratic state. We want a kind of reform for our institutions as we see now. And there is a transparent process that the current government is working on toward the reform. We think that the international community are meeting us at the middle of this way, and they are supporting this reform. They are helping in that reform. This reform means that we should have elections after 1 year, as it was stipulated in the president letter to Mr. Macron and Mr. Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince. So we believe that the international community will help in holding this election. But as you said, first, we need to stop the genocide in Gaza. We need to stop the Israeli aggression against our people. They should stop the starvation of our people in Gaza. They should stop killing and attacking our people in the West Bank, in cities, villages, and to stop their settler terrorism against our people, and to stop attacking our holy sites in Jerusalem.
Dr. Omar Awadallah, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for turning in. And if you like to stay in contact and in connection with our latest reports, interviews, and stories, be sure to follow us on our platforms: Facebook, Palestine International Podcast, and YouTube, Palestine International Podcast 2, and our website, pib.news. We appreciate your support, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.